Hi, Cora. Thanks a million for joining me on the podcast.
No problem at all, Orla. Thanks for having me.
I know you retired from AFLW last year. You're now maybe a performance coach, but I heard you say maybe jack of all trades. How has that kind of identity shift how have you been coping with that identity shift?
Yeah, it's actually been good. I suppose it's you're still in that kind of team environment, and you're kind of never have gone away from it, even though you're not doing the hard training and kind of impacting results on field. You're kind of doing a lot different work off field. But no, I'm enjoying it. When I went in first, obviously I don't have a camogie background. Obviously watch the sport and love watching camogie and hurling, but don't obviously know the whole insides of it, and kind of from the coaching point of view. But yeah, I probably not the biggest fan of the title of performance coach, but yeah, no, I suppose it's a jack of all trades. Kind of, I'm doing a bit of work with our forward and our forward line, and that's easy to bring over from the principles of Gaelic football and AFL. And then, yeah, kind of just working with the girls. I think we've 35, 36 girls in the panel, working with them individually, trying to get the best out of them, whatever way it might be. Working with our leaders as well um, to help them develop as people, but help them make our team better. Working with younger girls that maybe don't identify themselves as leaders as well, but trying to get them as kind of young emerging leaders. And yeah, just working basically with the whole management team. Working a lot with Cahill. As well, kind of a bit of a liaison officer between the players and the management group. So yeah, it's a number of different things, but yeah, I'm really enjoying the role, and it's, as I said, it's a good transition from not playing high level sport anymore, while I'm still tipping away and playing club football. You don't have that kind of high intensity that you would have at intercounty or AFLW level.
That's interesting to hear because we see all these kind of names coming in. I know Donegal O'Callaghan's with the Waterford Hurlers, kind of a couple of bits I saw over Twitter over the weekend with performance coaching. So are you more, how do you split your time in terms of one-to-one and team-based stuff? Is it kind of 50-50 or what way does that work?
Yeah, there's no set time to it. I suppose whatever is the most needed at the time. You'll spend more times with certain players than we will with others. I suppose whoever what the demands need. The basic thing is I'm there for every training session. So if we train 3 times in the week or 4 times in the week, I'm there for all training sessions. So yeah, you're in constant contact with the players. Yeah, sometimes I meet them all individually, one on one. I work collectively with the team. Whether it's at training, on the phone, outside of training. So yeah, it's a mixture of everything. It's just like being part of the management team. As I said, I nearly see myself my role more as a kind of just a selector. Like any selector would be doing. But yeah, some players demand more time than others, and that's always going to be the case. So you try to get around with them. You're working with girls that are kind of ranging from the age of kind of, I think our youngest is 18 with 3 girls that are doing the leaving search, right through to your oldest is I think 35 or 36. So you have a wide range of girls you're dealing with. But to be honest, it's no different. I suppose when I was over in Australia, while my role was obviously on field to play, I spent a lot of time doing mentoring with a lot of our younger girls over there. Again, who was that had a lot of girls kind of from the age of 18 to 22, 23 that had moved from the other side of Australia, maybe to Sydney, and are having difficulties in whatever parts of their life. It could be college, it could be work, it could be relationships, whatever it might be. So he ended up being nearly a mentor for them, and I suppose that for the last 5 years that I've been doing in Australia has been a real help going into this role. And I suppose it's just bringing your experience of being in high level teams for the last, in my case, probably for the last 25 plus years. So bringing a lot of that that I've learned over my time, whether it was with Mayo or was with the Giants in Australia. So yeah, it's learning for me all the time. But yeah, I actually love working with the girls and trying to improve them in whatever area they might be. I'm probably seeing the biggest area in women's sport is that kind of self belief and self confidence area that a lot of these athletes don't have, even though they've, certainly in Galway and Camogie, a lot of them have achieved a lot, whether it's multiple All Irelands or, numerous amount of Ulsters, there isn't still a huge self-belief and self-confidence in their ability.
That's really interesting. I didn't know that about Australia. Was that a formal role that the club approached you, or was it kind of just something that kind of turned into, a bit of a snowball sort of thing?
Yeah, it wasn't a formal role. I suppose when I went out there initially, when I, got asked to go out by our head coach, Al McConnell, at the time. While he wanted me out, obviously, to have an impact on the pitch, I think the main reason he brought me out was kind of in a leadership space. And he obviously identified that I came from, background of where our both club and county were very successful, and I was used to being in very successful teams. And he basically identified me and kind of a couple of older girls that he had got recruited from Australia that would help kind of drive that kind of culture and drive the standards of what it meant to be professional. Because, as I said, we girls that were 18, 19, and girls moving the other side of the country, and Australia is a big country, so and they were moving home for the first time. So yeah, I kind of fell into the role, but he obviously identified that's the on-field stuff. This is what he really wanted me to do on field. And I just kind of ended up working with a lot of our younger girls and just building relationships with them, in the first season, and getting to know them, and from kind of that season onwards, just helping them, whatever it might be. And then obviously I was in the leadership group for a number of years, and we devised kind of a buddy system in relation to that. We got a lot of our older girls mentoring a lot of our younger girls, just to make sure, because life is complicated. It's not always easy. And off field, if you're not doing well off field, your on field performances sometimes dip and struggle. So we kind of come up with a number of things like that. So that's the main reason that we did that, I suppose.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, because I think it was Ash Mack a while ago. I think it could have been last season, maybe the season before. There was kind of an Instagram post from the team, kind of announcing their leadership group, and I thought that was interesting that that's kind of out in public, because I suppose with inter-county stuff, it's all very secretive and you don't know what's going on. What is a leadership group like in the AFLW? That's obviously a more formal kind of structure that you go through, and how often do you meet, and how do they navigate that sort of?
So it's a huge thing over there, and it's a huge thing in the men's game as well. It's in every club, whether it's just part of the fabric, it's part of the game. So what happens is, basically, each club is probably a little bit different, but basically it's a vote, it's a vote by the playing group and the management staff as well, like the program, and that ranges out from your head coach to your line coaches to your physios to your strength and conditioning. So it's a lot of people that vote. It's a whole, anyone that's involved with the group. It could be, probably in our case, was probably up on 50 plus people voting. Now the vote doesn't just count for everything, because at the end of the day, it's the board of the football club that has to decide and say, we're happy for them to be part of the leadership group. So how it normally works is you have a captain, and normally the leadership group can be any number, can range from maybe 2 to 3 or sometimes more. And what they normally do is they have they vote on kind of different areas, who would you see strong in this area, and from that then they decide on who their leaders were. So I think I was probably in the leadership group for about 3 or 4 years. So you're basically just supporting the captain, and we'd meet weekly with the head coach, and over there every team has a manager. So a manager is a little bit different to what we see as a manager here. A manager just runs the day-to-day running of the program, whether that's budget, whether that's flights, they just manage the program, where the head coach does all the on-field stuff. So we'd meet, the head coach and the manager of the program and the leadership group would meet once a week, and then sometimes we'd have the sports psychologist in the meetings as well, and just issues on how we can make how we can make the group better, if there's any issues, or we just address things and talk about different things that are coming up and what's the best way to approach them. And that might be that we have a match coming up in Perth. What's the best way to travel? What's the best way to room? What do we need? And then obviously on-field things, if things aren't going well, how can we improve and drive the standards? And then individually we talk about players, and if players are struggling, and how we can deal with that, or different issues that just come up, day-to-day issues. So you're just basically a leader on field and off field. But we worked with different areas that maybe that you were strong on, and mine was certainly kind of that mentoring and looking after the younger players, and making sure they were looked after. Other girls.
No, that's really interesting. And so you'd be more the mentoring side of things, so you wouldn't really have maybe a blazing Coach Carter style speech before a game or anything, Cora?
Not initially over there, because I suppose initially when I went over, I went over as a nobody to them, so I had to really earn my stripes when I went over first. So that all had to be like on field. I probably didn't have much off field leadership early days. I was just worried about trying to make the team and make the best I could of myself. That took a while because obviously you have to build respect and trust to the group. They didn't know who I was. They just thought this one was coming from Ireland. They hadn't, a clue about AFL, which I didn't. So yeah, the first while was just about just getting myself better and train as hard as I can. And I suppose, when girls just see that the effort that you're putting in day out, and you're in the club the whole time practicing your skills, or trying to get better, watching a lot of vision or whatever it is, I suppose they see that. So I'm all about like what I do. It's not about what you say. And I suppose, after probably the first season, they could see that I could play, and then they saw how hard I worked. And I suppose then in my second season, when that was done, I broke my leg, and I suppose that was probably the biggest eye opener for them, that they seen that the process of rehab, and I suppose how hard I worked in that, and that's coming from them. I suppose that's what they told me afterwards. They probably didn't see what type of an athlete I was really until I broke my leg, and I had to stay over there for a longer period, and train 6 days a week, and kind of dedicate, probably 7 or 8 months to try and get myself. And I suppose that's when they probably seen the real me and who I was. And from there, then I suppose that's where, I could be a lot more vocal around the group, because I had probably earned the respect of the group at that stage.
And what was the attitude to ladies footballers coming over to Australia first? Because obviously we were just talking there before we recorded, 30 odd players this year, they've seen the benefit, but at the beginning, was it that kind of, God, what are they doing here? How is this going to work out? Or what was it like?
Yeah, I suppose, I was the first one to go over, so I suppose it was just a bit like, oh, who's this one? I was late coming over as well, because our club got to the All-Ireland final, so I missed the kind of first 5 or 6 weeks pre-season, and I rocked up, and it was kind of, there was, when I talked to the girls, maybe, that the end of that season, or maybe the next season, we laughed about it then, but I'd say I was the most Googled person there for a while before I come over, to wondering who I was. And yeah, it was kind of like, oh, they knew I obviously, had a big enough career here at home, and they were kind of like, who's this one coming and taking a spot in their list? So there was that pushback from certain players, and it's totally understandable if it was coming the other way as well. And as I said, there wasn't that much talk, because I was only one in the league for the first season there, I'd come over, and there wasn't a huge amount of talk. It was, obviously when I started playing and my performances were good, then there was probably a lot more talk about it, and how uniquely I was kicking the ball at the time, so different things like that. So early days, it was kind of, oh, they're actually doing well, and we're very different in the way we play. So the Aussie commentators and coaches liked that, and yeah, we had a very good first season over there. So yeah, but nowadays, since my first season to the season that's about to start in a couple of months' time, there's gone from one player now to 32. Yeah, they love the Irish over there now, and they see how beneficial they are, and how dynamic, and how agile, and just how different they are, and what they can bring to the game. And I suppose we've seen that over the last few years, with girls winning premierships in all Australias and stuff. And how the Aussies are now coming. They come to Ireland. The head coaches come and try and scout out a few players and come to meet them. And there's been a good few over in the last few months to get the likes of Jennifer Dunn, Ashley Maloney, these type of girls across. And yeah, the Irish are very exciting in the league now, and they do make the league better.
I think there was a clip, it could have been Zach Toohey from maybe last season, but there was definitely an Irish player over there, and the Australians couldn't believe that they could kick off both feet. I thought that was really interesting. We obviously see Conor McKenna doing the kind of the dummy solo and stuff like that in the middle of an AFL game. What do you think are the differences that Irish players bring, whether it's to the women or the men's game, that the Australians are now starting to enjoy? Those kind of, what are the little details that they've started to kind of maybe look at even with the women's game?
Yeah, well, I suppose they think the Irish are very tough. I think that's the biggest one for me anyways. They just think that we're don't like to say a little bit crazy, but like we'll just play through anything. I know from my case, well, a couple of times I broke my nose and had surgery on a Tuesday and played on a Saturday, or different things like that. So they think we're really tough, and we just get on with it, and we just play. I think that's probably the biggest thing. They're probably look after themselves little bit better than we do, and I suppose that's probably the difference between the professional and amateur setup. I just think how unique we are and dynamic we are when we get the ball. I just don't think they know what we're about to do with it. So there's that kind of, like Conor McKenna or whatever it might be. There's there's that type of dynamic movement that they're not sure what's going to happen. I think our speed is huge. Most of the Irish come over have a lot of speed, and our agility as well. A lot of the Australians and the game, the way it's done, they run in straight lines, where we're not used to running in straight lines. We're very different type of lateral and linear movements. So it's that kind of agility. Yeah, it's just that they just don't know what the Irish. We're not just the same as them. And obviously, it's to learn the kick. And we just kick a little bit different to them, and then the whole thing of playing on, we just play on the whole time, and a lot of them just get a mark and come back off the mark. It's just the instincts that we have. They're very Gaelic football based, and they just lead us to doing stuff that they'd never do over there. So, but yeah, if I was to probably pick the top three, it's how tough we are, it's how agile and explosive we are, and how dynamic, I suppose, are probably the three things.
Mm-hmm. The sport is so new in Australia, but you're starting to see the natives really pushing on. Like, you've girls that are 17, 18 that grew up playing the sport, since they were kids. But do you think there will still be a need kind of for Irish players going into the future? You've obviously said how successful Irish players have been. Will that continue? Will that trend still continue of trying to recruit ladies footballers from Ireland? Or eventually do you think it might slow down a little bit as the game kind of grows a bit more in Australia with all the younger girls coming up?
Yeah, it will slow down at some point, but I think it's a long way away. I think it's not in the next 5, 6, 7 years. It probably will by the time maybe it comes fully professional. There's talks about 2030 when it comes to fully professional league. But I just think they just look at the Irish, and even in the men's game, and I know there's not as many there now, but they look, and COVID has stopped a lot of that. They look at the Irish as just a free hit. They can bring someone over on a rookie contract for 2 years, and if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. It doesn't cost them a huge amount of money. So yeah, I think there'll be always need for the Irish, especially in the women's game for a longer period, because their academies are only up and running in the last kind of number of years. It only became fully professional in 2016, started 2017, and the academies aren't there. While there's younger players coming through every year, there's probably only 7 or 8 really good players that are coming through. There's 18 clubs, and so there's not even one per club that are coming through every year that are top level. So yeah, there'll be certainly need for them for a long period of time. Because their academies aren't developed, and there's also there is a new team going to be coming in, when we're not sure yet, in both the men's and women's game. Tasmania are coming in as a 19 team, so that's just bringing in an extra 30 girls that they're going to need. And if the game, which will move to being fully professional, the list size are only going to get bigger. So at the moment, the list size for women are 30, so each panel has 30 players. But if you're in the men's game and they're fully professional, each their panels are 38 plus. Some of them have up to 40, so that means you're going to need more players. So if you've 18 teams and you have an extra 10 players, that's 180, and a 19 team to come in as well. That's another 210 players. They're not that easy gain, and you just don't have enough underage coming through. So yeah, for the next foreseeable future, certainly the next 5, 7, 8 years, that the Irish will be needed. And I said they're a free hit. If they don't work out, they don't work out. But the success rate of them coming over and working out has I'd say it's probably at about 85, 90% at the moment.
Wow, yeah, that's a good point. I wouldn't have thought of it that way. When you're looking at the ladies game here, in terms of ladies Gaelic football and camogie, it's progressing. Even the men's game, it's just becoming more and more professional every year. Is there anything that we can take from the AFL setup with the clubs or with the organisation that we can bring into ladies football? And obviously there's going to be a limit because we're not professional, we're not, the money's different, but is there anything simple that we can take from what AFLW do within their clubs or the organisation and implement it here in Ireland to improve the level of the game or the structure or anything?
No, I think it's very different, because a lot of it comes down to money, and that the difference between either semi-professional, professional or amateur. You're just so much looked after better, because number one, you have all the resources there that you mightn't have at home, but number two is that you have the time because you don't have to work. Like the biggest thing for me is when I went over, I didn't work, so I had time just to make myself the best AFL player I could be, because I didn't have to get up in the morning and work and then go to training. And plus as well that when you're training really hard, you have the time to recover, you have the time to get your massage, do your ice baths, whatever it might be. And it's all there, and it's all there in one building. You go into the club and everything's on there for you. If I wanted, to get my nutrition to get better, or if I needed sports psych, whatever it might be. If I needed extra strength conditioning work or extra kicking work, there's always someone on hand to help you. And it was all within the one building. So, what like Gaelic footballers, both men and women, and camogie players, whatever it might be, and hurlers, they're at the very high level here. Like, we're amateur by nature, but everything they do is professional. But they just don't have the resources or time to dedicate to what the AFL have. That's the biggest issue. Like, I firmly believe, when you go over to Australia, as a footballer, if you dedicate all your time into making yourself a better athlete, you're going to be a better athlete. There's no doubt about it, because everything is there in hand and foot. The biggest thing I'd say is their recovery model, and looking after yourself. Here, I know through my Gaelic football career, it was never less is more. Over there, it's certainly less is more. But I think that's just the Irish mentality, and that's very hard to change. Like, I found that extremely hard to change. I don't think I ever changed. At times when I went over there and I was trying to, nail my kicking and get things better and all my skills, like, I was out on the pitch for hours, and the physios and strength conditioning coaches over there be going absolutely mad. But I just knew I needed to get better, and the only way I was going to get better is by practicing. So, I just think the way they look after players, their whole health system, I suppose that's probably the biggest thing for me. Like, and I unfortunately I've seen enough with the injuries that I kind of picked up over there. But you're just looked after so well. Everything is done now. It's not done in 2 weeks' time or 3 weeks' time. Like, they've so much care for the athlete. So if you get injured, a training or a game, like, you are looked after straight away, and you have scans or appointments. It's all done within 24 hours, and you're not covering any of the costs. And that's the biggest
Right.
that's the biggest gripe I have probably with ladies football. And this is speaking personally, that you have injuries over the year, whether you have to get scans, or get an ACL operation, whatever it might be, and you're so much out of pocket, and so much hard work to go and get that scan, or to get that operation, or to claim that money back. Where there, you're just looked after. Like, they're all about the athletes and looking after them, and that's from a physical and mental health point of view. Like, they're all about the athlete and making sure that they can be the best person that they can be every day of training. So I suppose that's probably something they can look at. But from a ladies football point of view, like, I think the biggest thing they need to fix is obviously have integration, and that both senior intercounty men and women, camogie players, hurlers, ladies footballers, and men's footballers are just treated exactly the same. And that's from expenses to medical to whatever it might be, facilities, food, the 5 or 6 basic things that they need to be looked after.
How did you find going over there? Obviously, being able to have the time to be the best athlete you can be. How did you find it in terms of? I was reading a book at one point and was talking about being a professional and playing sport versus it being your job, and going to work is actually going to play sport. How did you find it? Is it still enjoyable when you're at a professional level, when you're training that often? Obviously it's different for you, maybe because you would have probably, I find with GA players, you would have dreamed of this being full time, obviously because we have jobs in Ireland. But how did you find it?
Yeah, no, I loved it. Like, when I was 10 or 11, I thought I was going to play for Man United. Like, I was a huge Man United fan. I wanted to be Roy Keane. Obviously that could never have been at that stage. Now it can be an option for young girls growing up that they can play for professionally for Man United. But I loved it. I just loved the challenge of getting better. Like, obviously it was a new sport, and I suppose I'd probably done it before here, where I picked up rugby, just for the crack, to learn the game, a couple of years earlier. And I just loved the challenge of getting better at rugby, and that wasn't at a professional level. And then to go and pick up this sport and try and be good at it, I just loved the challenge, like, of trying to go from being like at the bottom of the ladder to as far up as you could get up the ladder. So, like, every day I loved it. Like, even from the point of view, like, when I would have left to go to Australia, we'd have done strength conditioning and that with Mayo, but we wouldn't have done a huge amount. Where they're all about strength conditioning. We do at least 4 gym sessions a week. And even that, now, it was taxing for the first while, but even that, trying to make yourself like you're stronger and more powerful and fitter I just love that, and to dedicate the time to do it. And like when you're retired, obviously you could just rest. But like I loved the challenge of being in the 1 week that you're able to squat whatever, and you're pushing to squat more, and you're being pushed all the time. And it was the same, obviously, on field. Then I just loved trying to get better at everything, and just I don't think proving people wrong, but just trying to impress the coach all the time that he made the right decision to bring you over. And yeah, every year I'd come home then in the off season, and yeah, I'd just be trying to make sure I was stronger and fitter going back, and that my skills were better. And so you end up just being obsessed with it really, and just end up wanting to practice all the time and get better. Yeah, and I just obviously love the competitive nature, and just being, just all the time making yourself the version you could of yourself. So like being in the professional environment, yeah, it's amazing. I think that's what the draw is for the girls, is to that you've just everything there to try and better. As I said, I struggle to see why people feel when they go, because everything is there for you to make you better. It is there for you, and it's only maybe bad luck if you get injured. The only reason that you're not going to succeed.
When you're at an elite level in any sport, I'm interested in this question. I've asked a number of athletes this one. Is it more physical or mental, the challenge of being an elite athlete? What is it for you?
Oh, I think it's a bit of both. I find I'm mentally very strong. I find that over the years, whatever I yeah, a huge amount of millions, whether that things that happen in your life, or I suppose from an early age, probably since about 13, I've pressure put on my shoulders and to perform at a high level. So I loved that pressure of trying to get better and get to it. So yeah, for me, I suppose because of my age as well, it was the physical side of it that I probably would have worried about. So that's why I put a huge amount of time into it. Um, you know, I'm not the most aerobic athlete where I'd love to do long distance run. I hate it. I'm more explosive and powerful. So that was always the challenge, to keep myself physically well enough to train all the time and play all the games. And even with Mayo, like I don't miss training. Like I train, and in the Giants at the same time. Like if to do 500 training sessions, I'd probably do 498. I'll only miss for, like, it's a big reason. I know the one time I missed last season is where I had surgery on a Tuesday at 2 o'clock on my nose, and we trained that evening, and they wouldn't let me train when I come out of surgery. Like they're the type of things I just don't miss. So yeah, because physically I know that I need to be training all the time to be the best I can be. So yeah, I don't think I ever like found it mentally challenging. The only thing I've probably found mentally challenging was injury, or the first time I went over was being away from home, and you're struggling for a few weeks there because you don't know the weather, new teammates, and as I said, I probably wasn't the new girl in the dress, since that was probably the only mental challenge I had, and obviously when I broke my leg, the seriousness of that, and being away from home, and yeah, trying to learn how to walk and run again, were probably that they were the only mental challenges I had. But from an elite athlete point of view, it was always physical. But I knew once I was training on field, all the time, and playing all the games, and I suppose that probably showed. I played 50 games over there, and I didn't miss a game in the 6 years, 6 seasons I played, which is quite unique over there because of the nature of the game, and how the season runs, that you've game, every 5, 6, 7 days.
Is that where we spoke about earlier in terms of working with Galway and girls maybe lacking self belief and confidence? Was the physical preparation where you developed your confidence and your preparation, be able to say, yeah, I am 100% ready for this because I have trained every single day, I haven't missed a session? Is that kind of where you get your confidence and your self belief from?
Yeah, 100%. That's it. If I'm training and I know I'm training well, and I'd normally be a good trainer, as in performing, then I'm hugely confident going out. Where if I had missed a couple of sessions, which doesn't rarely happen, then yeah, I'm kind of like, oh, I'm not sure if I'm fully prepared. And as I said, the only time that happened when I broke my leg, and coming back from my leg, that where I probably found I was a little bit mentally worried, would I be fit enough? Had I lost a yard of pace, or I'd lost, a bit of my agility. And then obviously the mental challenge of, oh God, like again, because that's how I broke my leg. Is there that going to be there? But none of that was
Yeah.
there. But that's because I was lucky enough the people I was working with. But no, once I was prepared, and it was the same playing Mayo football, all the time. Yeah, as I said, I just trained and I knew it's the same, free taking in Mayo, like or with club, on my days off I'd be out, maybe twice a week taking 50 to 80 frees just to be the best I could be. So once I felt I was prepared and not had any niggles or injuries, then that's where I always felt I was mentally ready for the game, and it never fazed me in that kind of way.
That's interesting because I was talking to someone before about how do players, particularly like in an intercounty setup, I think was the question, but in an elite setup, how do you improve within a team setting when you're trying to, let's say you've been dropped and you're trying to push it up, or even yourself with freeze, you're trying to stay on top of it. How do you improve within a team setup as an individual? Is it just those extra hours that you do outside the team? What is it?
Yeah, it's the extra hours outside the team, but it's also it's actually the hours that you're actually at training. Like, and I'd see whether it's with Galway Camogie now or it's myself when I was training. You have to max out at every session. You have to get the best at every session that you go to. You might be there for an hour and a half. Probably even now in the way that sports science has gone, time on the pitch is quite minimal because they say there's this optimal window of maybe 70 to 90 minutes. When I was younger and we were training at Mayo, you could be there for 2.5 hours, but you have to max out every session. Like, there's girls that can come training, whether if it's the AFL or it's Galway Camogie or it's Mayo, whatever it might be, Cornacon, girls will come and they're there, but they're not getting the best out of themselves at every session. So I always found that I had to come off, and I know I'd given everything in each session, and I'm exhausted. And you'd be playing, most games you play, our trainings you play a game, whether it's a 15-minute game or 20-minute game, that you're getting the best out of yourself, and you know how sharp you are in them games and how well you're performing. So yeah, I just trained my max, and AFL was always the same. And again, they laughed over there because you're older and they're trying to maximize you. They sometimes give you less load to do, and I was like, I'm doing the running, and like they'd always give you the option if you wanted to pull out. And I just they knew by the end, they knew after a couple of weeks not even to ask, because I knew I had to do everything as much as the girl that was beside me, whether she was 20 or 25, that you're doing the same. So yeah, I think that's it. You just have to max out and get the best out of your sessions. And because as I said, you're not on field that long enough, and you just do what you're told on your days off, and try and recover as well to max out for the next session.
Yeah. Is that something you can teach players, or do you measure it with players now in terms of just getting the absolute max out of yourself, and kind of just like consistency as a skill? Like, how do you teach it?
Yeah, it's very difficult. I don't know if I have the answer to that. You hit the nail on the head. The consistent trainers are normally the consistent performers, and the consistent performers need to be your 7, 8, 9 is a lot to ask for, but you're certainly probably your 8 out of 10 week in, week out in games. If you want to be an 8 out of 10 week in, week out in games, you need to be an 8 out of 10 every day you train. And that's a huge challenge. That's the mental challenge. That's not a physical challenge. That's a mental challenge. I think it's just to identify that with players, that you can see that they fluctuate in how they train, and for them to identify that and then to monitor. A lot of the time, it might be just to write down a couple of things after training: how you trained tonight, what would you give yourself out of 10, what would your coach give yourself out of 10, but also then maybe just write down a few notes how you felt. Well, why was that an 8 out of 10 session? And if you train two days later, why is that a 5 out of 10? Find out the reasons behind it, and then that's where you kind of get consistency. Because if you get consistency in training, you get consistency in performance. And again, I only spoke with our girls this week around it, around that's really important. And I know who our consistent trainers are, and our consistent trainers are ones that consistently perform week in, week out. And it's the girls that do try to max out and get the best out of themselves each week. And it's a skill. It takes a long time, and I think the longer you're there, the more experience around that you have, the better you'll develop each week. But that said, you do always have the ones that are a little bit different. A couple of 18, 19, 20-year-olds that I'd say fall into that bracket for us at the moment. They're hugely consistent trainers, but they're highly driven. They want to get to the top. So I think it's the highly driven athletes that want to get the best out of themselves. They're normally the trainers that max out and perform consistently for you.
Brilliant. you're a pro. I was actually, my favourite question to ask every guest is, of all the athletes you've been around, trained with, played against, anything, what separates the kind of, what's the pattern, or what's the separation between the great athletes and the elite athletes versus kind of the rest of the pack? You know, the all-stars, the player of the years, the all-Australians. Is it the consistency? Is there other patterns that you see? Is it the drive? What is it?
Yeah, it's the consistency, certainly. Yeah, they're very driven. I suppose they set goals for themselves, or not goals or targets to reach all the time. And I do think it's that consistency in training. You know, what you do in the hours away from match day is probably the most important. And what you do in the hours away from the pitch as well is hugely important. So, yeah, I think there's that drive, there's that really ultra competitiveness as well. And probably, I think most of our best players are very stubborn, and nothing kind of gets in their way.
When you look back in your career, Cora, can you like, when was your peak in your eyes? I hear players speak about it. I think it Brenner Brogan just said, I think it was 2010, 2011, when he was inside the 45 either side, he just had complete confidence in his kicking, where he knew, like, that's gone over. You hear other players kind of in this flow state. What for you, was there just this time where you just felt sort of immortal? I don't know if that's the right word, but was there just this time where you just felt like, I'm at the peak of my powers here, or did you ever reach that point?
No, I couldn't honestly tell you from a Gaelic football point of view. No, I probably couldn't say when I reached the peak of my powers. I actually felt when I went to Australia, because of the training we were doing and because of the resources and staff that were there, I probably was the fittest I ever was after I broke my leg and came back that season. So probably that 2019-20, my best season probably with the Giants was 21. But yeah, when I went to Australia, my body shape, my body type changed. Yeah, just everything. I just got fitter, stronger because I was in a professional environment. So from that point of view, I probably peaked then, which is mad. But like from a Gaelic football point of view, oh God, I honestly couldn't answer you. I just thought most years I was probably consistently performing. As as I'd say, he'd have dips in years, but no, like I couldn't bar when I probably tore my cruciate, and probably that season or the season after, there was probably a little bit of dip there, but that was all injury related, I'd say.
When you look at the game now in terms of ladies football, what do you see as the most underrated or overlooked skill in the game? Is there anything we're just missing as coaches or as players that you see a lot of, that there should be more emphasis on?
Oh yeah, I just think the basic skills are the most important. Even when you're coaching young girls now, like it's the basic things. It's being able to hand pass with both feet. It's being able to solo with both feet, kick with both feet. I think we've gone away from a lot of that. I don't see that high level of left, right solo or being able to protect yourself. I think it's become obviously very athletic. Really high intensity, high speed, that kind of drive and runs. But at the same time, I think skill development is the biggest thing. I think it's just hugely important that you can solo on your left foot. If someone is trying to tackle you from the side, that you can ball over to them, free solo at speed. I think still a lot of girls can't do. Just being able to hand pass, to a target, from a good distance. And that might be that you're putting the ball into space because someone's, trying to go out the back door or something like that. It's the little skills that you really need, or intricacies in the game. Just even decision making, to be able to find that pass, to hold the ball, to wait till someone makes a run. So a lot of it's the basic skills of either solo and kick passing, or hand passing, and it's with both feet. I think while the game has moved in terms of athleticism, I think there are areas that we still can focus on a lot, because I think it's gone to a very much that we need to be fit, we need to be able to run, we need to cover the ground, we need to be quick, but sometimes I think that's still lost. And obviously there's nothing like being able to kick a long range point from 45, 50 meters. Like, that's to me is the best skill. Yeah, while it's great scoring wonder goals, it's the time you can stand and maybe hit a free from 50 yards outside your boot, and it's sailing over. I think, yeah, there's very few in the game that can do that. The top ones, Amy Mackins, the Ash Maloneys, they can do that, but there's not that many can do it. They're skills that I just love watching. I just long distance point taken, I just think is we don't have too many people that can do it.
Yeah. What do you make of the 2 points for 45 rule off the ground?
Oh, if we want to be fair and equal, like and want to be like the men's game, it should be just a point in my eyes. Like I think it's a great skill. Don't get me wrong. I understand why they're doing it, and it's not very common in Gaelic football. But I think 45 is a point, and that's it. That's my opinion on it. Because that's the way the game is. I think it's. Oh, I think it's. I don't know if condescending is the wrong word, but I just feel it should just be a skill. And if free taken off the ground, which is becoming a little bit more common, Roisin Leonard, there was some other girl from some other county. I can't remember now where she scored as well. Them. I think she from. Is
it Westmeath?
It could have been Westmeath. Yeah. I think there was one from O'Connell County as well. I'm thinking it's Leitrim. That's.
Oh, I think you're right. Yeah.
So like I think it just should be becoming a skill, because there shouldn't be difference between what a men's 45 is off the ground and a women's 45. It's a great skill to be able to do it free taken off the ground. I tried it many years ago. It's a difficult skill and requires a lot of practice, but it's certainly it's a great skill to be able to do in the game.
In terms of playing both sports, what was harder to play tactically? Was it ladies football or AFLW?
Oh, AFLW. Because I suppose you grow up playing ladies football, and I'm in that out. When I went over to AFL, I hadn't a clue about it, and it's a very tactically based game. It's AFL based, where they have game plans that if the ball is in a certain area of the pitch, you have to stand here, and if it's in another area, this is how you set up. And yeah, it's very tactical, and they spend a lot of time on the tactic side of it. And that's because it's a slower nature with all the stuff and ball and stuff. So yeah, if you're attacking and defending, it's different as well. So yeah, even now, it's still they have different positions. If you're a winger and in people have different roles. Where in Gaelic football, I knew what our cornerback was doing, or centre back, where I didn't know what half the team were doing when I was playing AFL, and I knew what I was doing.
When you're looking back on your career, and I asked Breed Stack this question as well, what's your definition of success, or how do you measure success in a sporting context when you look back on your careers?
Yeah, I suppose. Well, a lot of people will measure it on medals and individual awards. I wouldn't be personally one of them. How I measure myself personally is my longevity within the sport, and that you can perform at the highest level for as long as you could. That would probably be my success. Whether that was in Gaelic football, that you're top of the game going out when you left. For Mayo, or top of your game for when I was leaving the Giants. So success was that that you're top of the game for as long as you could be, but also that that you could play. You weren't kind of just you had a huge impact in every game that you played, and I think that was probably how I measured it as well. And yeah, my longevity and being able to play for as long as I have, and probably even though I had injuries, probably not missed very much. I suppose that's probably the success I measure by. It's you do love to win everything and have huge success by medals and individual awards, but at the end of the day, while they're important and you're competitive and you want to win, it's not the be all and end all. So yeah, how long you could play at the top was probably the biggest way of measuring it.
And what allowed you to be, to have such a long career and the success you've had? It's for the next Cora Staunton that's listening, that wants to replicate what you've done. How did you do it?
I suppose there's multiple factors. I suppose luck is one of them. Like it has to be, injuries. While I broke numerous bones, I actually have never tore a hamstring, or I've never had a soft tissue injury, and I think that's huge, because if you start to have them, they can be a real problem. So I've never had any muscular injuries. I've broken plenty of bones, as I said, but they can heal, and normally you can play through a lot of them. I think just preparation and just for me, I suppose the biggest thing, I never stopped. Whether it was, I never had a long break, whether it was for club, Mayo, AFL. I was training. I trained 11 and a half months of the year. I might have had a week or two off, and it was just the way it fell. when we would finish with Mayo, our club were very successful. We'd be into county, Connacht, All Ireland, and yeah, it went on till November, December, and then you'd roll around and be in Mayo the next year, and that went on for 20 plus years with me, and then the same with the Giants. I never had an off season because I just kept going, and that helped me keep at a high level. I think if I certainly when I got older, I think if I decided I'm taking 6 months off here and not doing anything, there'd be no chance of me trying to get back and playing. So I think it's that just being your preparation and just spending time at trying to make yourself the best, and as the consistency of training, not missing training was another huge thing for me. Being able to train 90, probably 8% of the time over the last kind of 30 plus years is probably the main reason that I've been able to be consistent and stay at the top, because I could, I just was lucky that I didn't pick up a lot of injuries, and my body was kind of very resilient to anything like that.
Did you ever feel that sense of burnout or just not enjoying sport at any point, when you're training that often, or how did you balance that?
No, I didn't, because I loved it. I actually felt, I'm sure there was periods of time, with different issues that were probably going on, but majority of the time, no. I never felt that training and games were a chore. I actually really enjoyed it because it was this place where majority of my good friends were there. And you'd see them 2, 3, 4 times a week. I had this kind of sense of freedom when you played the game as well, or you trained. It was like it was like your really safe, happy place that you go to, a couple of times a week. So I kind of never felt like, like a lot of people, like, inter-county players feel like it's a chore, they're being burned out. I actually just loved playing the game. Like, I really loved playing Gaelic football for as long as I did. And then AFL was like, this is like a new love. So I even loved that more. So I think it was just the challenges along the way, and just trying to make yourself, like in Gaelic football, obviously, the longer you're playing, you're only trying to make yourself a 0.5% better or 1% better. Where then when AFL came along, you're trying to make yourself 10% better, 20% better. So it was always that challenge of, trying to make yourself better and strive to get to the top. And ultimately, you never felt like, we're at the top of your game and you're at the best. You just knew there was always more in you.
Something we're going to discuss in the webinars in the coaching group that we're going to restart. And now, as a performance coach, you're able to give your 2 cents on this. But when we're talking about culture and building successful teams and organisations and groups, what is it actually like to be in an elite performing team that have finding success? You've done it at basically all the levels. Like, what can you describe what that's like to people who don't have that experience or don't understand what it's like?
Yeah, it's very hard to describe in terms of, no different. Because that's what, like, luckily enough, I was born into a very good club, and from a very young age I knew nothing different, only winning and having success. And that continued right through from probably when I was maybe 10 or 11, right through, especially with club, right through to 2 years ago. So I probably had the guts of 28, 29 years at top level of, performing at a really high level, and having a team, that was just week in, week out winning, and year in, year out winning. And I think it's, you just keep expecting more. You win something, but you're wondering what's next. So you might win a county title and that's gone. We've won that. We might win a Connacht. That's gone. We've won that. Then in All Ireland, you win that and you're like, what's next? You're always wanting more. You become very greedy, because I don't know if it's probably the buzz that you get from winning, and you've targets where, you win your first, you're like, this is great, and then you win your second, and it's just, it's this kind of adrenaline rush or buzz that you go on. And the way then you kind of create the culture is that filters right down throughout the team. And the more the team that is winning, the more leaders are stepping up, and the more players are stepping up, and it just becomes a conveyor belt. I know within our club, it became a conveyor belt. We then would we might start to bring in 2 or 3 younger girls, and they'd be young, 14, 15, into the squad. And they'd come in and they'd see what a winning squad was like. They'd have the same expectations, or the same things would be wanted off them as was wanted off me. So if we're doing a training session, they're expected to train as hard as I was. And you're feeding that into your 14, 15-year-olds, even 13-year-olds. And that conveyor belt was kept building. That, you bring 2 or 3 of them in every year. And then 13, 14, 15-year-olds in a couple of years' time, then we're becoming your leaders. And then it just, because it's just it's conveyor belt, and it's just a wheel that keeps turning. And they just see how hard they've seen success, how hard you train, and you just, there's luck along the way because you develop players as well. You have to have a very good underage system, but they see what it takes to get to the top, and now they're training as hard as you are, and it just continues on. And I just think you have that really like really tough mentality that you always go out with, while you respect your opponent and you massively respect them, you're always expecting that you're going to win. Nothing's too hard. So yeah, it builds. And obviously for us in club, we had it probably for the guts of well over 20 years, at a senior level, and probably even longer at an underage level. And it just takes that conveyor belt of two or three people. It might be two or three, might be even just one to come through every year to top up your team. And if you have a mentality through your team that you train really hard, you work really hard, anyone that steps into it, they've continued to do the same. And as I said, new leaders are born all the time, and then they just bring along the younger players. So you have followers for a while, they become leaders, and yeah, they just continues to go like that.
Okay, that's really interesting. Derek is in the coaching group. He wanted me to ask you a question. Any particular drills you learned in Australia that would transfer well to LGFA
Yeah,
or Gaelic football?
yeah, it's amazing. There's a lot of drills, but a lot of them are similar. To be honest, when you look at the AFL drills that you do, there's a lot of similar drills. To have the same base of Gaelic football. Yeah, there's a couple of that I'd certainly bring to club training. A lot of it's kind of around that contested work on the ground, scrappy ball to be won, how you use your body. Patterns of running as well. In Gaelic football, we don't really have. Everyone just kind of runs to where they want. So yeah, patterns of running and how you might lose a defender. You've kind of learned a few different tricks. And again, it's amazing, even with our forward group now in Galway, how you might use that. They talk over there a lot of the time about treading water, and waiting patiently, that you're not just standing still and then going, that you're kind of moving around. Yeah, there's a couple of other drills. It's very hard to explain them, but say for an example, if a ball comes in and to your full back line, or your goalkeeper, how you as another defender can seal out for your goalkeeper, or for that other back to protect them. So yeah, there's loads of drills, and as I said, even some of them I've used in Galway, Camogie used a club train and stuff like that. Because you just, they just become the norm to you. But when you actually sit down and look at it and use the terminology, there's certainly a lot of AFL stuff that I have used. As I said, whether it's in Galway, Camogie or club football, or I use individually myself now just in games.
Okay, I'll definitely. We'll have to. It sounds like we have to do an in-person coaching session in Dublin at some point, Cora. I'm gonna move on to the sideline 7. I've actually forgotten to send you these, but it's basically the same 7 questions at the end of every episode. You can take it as thought-provoking, fire round, whatever you think. Question 1, Cora. What's your favourite quote?
What is my favourite quote? What is it? What is it? It's about talent and hard work. No, I won't get the right.
Hard work beats talent.
Yeah, when talent doesn't work. Yes, that's my favourite quote. I just yeah.
Very good. Question 2, what's the best sporting event you've been to? And you can pick one as a fan or one as a player.
One as a fan, best sporting event I've been to. Oh. Obviously, as a player, the All Ireland final, any of the All Ireland finals in Croke Park, even the one we lost in 2017, I think that was the first time they broke 50,000. So that was huge as a player, to be involved in. As a fan, probably, like, obviously, like, I can't say any of the All Ireland finals because Mayo have lost them all in the men's. I was at an Anzac Day match in the MCG, Collingwood versus Essendon a few years ago. Conor McKenna was playing it for Essendon. And there was I think about 95,000 at it. So yeah, that was just the atmosphere.
Wow.
For that was huge. So Anzac Day over there is probably the second biggest day on the AFL calendar, bar grand final, which is All Ireland final day. So yeah, the MCG, 95,000 in it, and it was an exceptional game as well. So
wow, that sounds pretty cool.
yeah.
Looking back, Cora, what was the biggest setback or challenge you had throughout your career, and how did you react to it?
There's probably been a few. Obviously, injury, ACL, and breaking my leg in Australia were probably the two biggest challenges. Breaking my leg certainly was the hardest to come back from. Yeah, I think resilience, hard work, and I suppose yeah, I work off, people are obviously doubting at that stage you come back. So yeah, you'll just be very motivated to get back. But yeah, in I do stuff, I love me years ago. I played with us and lost my mother when I was quite young. So I think them setbacks are very breathtaking part in making you resilient and deal with things like that.
Absolutely. Was there anything? I think I know the answer to this one, but when you did break your leg in particular, was there any doubt in your mind that you get back playing, or were you just like, this is just another roadblock here, just another step?
No, there was no doubt in my mind. Maybe initially when I heard, oh God, 4 breaks in your leg, and I started going on Google to see what was the quickest recovery time. There were probably like a little bit, initially when X-rays showed, but once I had surgery and once I had surgery, no, I had no doubt in my mind. I actually was, I was highly motivated, and I was just lucky. I was in a very good country health wise, and 2 weeks after after surgery and stitches out, I was cycling on a bike, already. So I never doubt what people did. So, but no, I had never a doubt. I was just highly driven to come back. I suppose there's little doubts where you worry, will you come back to the level that you're at? Like, would you lose the way you run, or jump, or how quick you'd be? But no, thankfully, none of that happened.
Kind of on the flip side, then, what's been your biggest achievement on or off the pitch, Cora, so far?
Oh, I don't really have the biggest achievement. Obviously, you've won a lot and achieved a lot, but I suppose my biggest achievement is just, again, goes back to that lucky enough, I've played, 4 different codes of sport at a high enough level: soccer, Gaelic, rugby, and AFL. And just, yeah, I think my biggest achievement is my longevity in my career, and I'm coming out the other side, and I'm still able to walk and perform and play. So I think, yeah, it's just how I've been able to play a number of different sports, and at the end of it, that I could go out the top, and and play 4 different sports at a high level. So yeah, it's probably longevity in my career that I could play probably over a 30+ year period.
Very good. Looking back, what advice would you give your 18-year-old self?
Oh, I probably enjoy it more. Obviously when you're in that like winning environment and culture, and you just wanted more and more. And I probably didn't enjoy what we won, especially from a club point of view. You know, I see teams that win a county final now and how much they celebrate it and want it, and talk about it, where we were very much programmed. We've won a county final. What's next? As I said to you already, you'd win Connacht. What's next? You'd win All Ireland. Well, how do we win the next one? So it's probably to enjoy each of the things that you won and celebrate them a bit more. I was always probably worried about what's next, whether that was collectively or individually. But yeah, not that in any way that I regret it, but I would say to my 18-year-old self, probably enjoy it a bit more, because there's plenty of time in your career that you won't win things, and you just probably don't realize how lucky you are and how much that you're winning.
That's interesting. That's actually been quite a common answer. Question 6, Cora, who would be your dream dinner guest and why?
Just one.
Or you can pick a few if you want. You can have a dinner party.
Okay. Well, like from a sporting context, my sporting hero is Roy Keane, so he'd definitely be at it. David Beckham, big Man United fans, he'd be at it. Cristiano Ronaldo, he'd be at it. Alex Ferguson, I'd love to pick his brain. So yeah, it'd be probably a lot of the old Man United team. And then someone like Serena Williams, I just love what she's done for women's sport. I'd love to just pick her brain around. Obviously she retired quite a late stage in her life as well, and it was highly competitive and all she won. So she'd be another one that I'd love at it. But yeah, any of the really top sports people, I have great respect for anyone. Obviously, because my career went on into my late 30s, early 40s, the likes of them people, what makes them unique? The likes of Roger Federer, Nadal, Williams, all of them type of people. Why are they still motivated at their age and they've achieved so much? What kept them ticking? So yeah, they'd be all probably from a sports background, and that's what I'd love. I'm very interested in other sports people and what makes them tick.
Okay, very interesting. Last question before I let you go. If your life was a book, what chapter would this be called?
Oh Christ. I don't even know the names of my own book and the chapters in them. So, this would be, oh God, that's a very difficult question. Certainly wouldn't be the last chapter anyways. It'd be probably the phase between non-playing and moving. What's next? I suppose what's next would be the chapter. That's probably a good answer. What's next?
What's next? Very good. Cora, I'll let you go. Thanks a million for all your time and best of luck with Galway and your own playing days. You're still going and beyond. And thanks a million
No
again.
problem at all. Thanks for having me on, Orla.